The stars looked the same as they always had, but Ambassador Yuna knew that everything was about to change. She stood in the communication chamber of Earth's embassy on Nexera Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Empire. Her hands were shaking as she watched the holographic display in front of her. 30 humans knelt in the execution square. Their hands were bound behind their backs. They wore simple gray prison clothes. Among them was Do-Yun, a young engineer who had only been in space for 2 years. His sister Hana had called Yuna 3 times that morning, begging her to do something, anything, to save her brother. But there was nothing Yuna could do. Emperor Volthor III sat on a floating throne above the square. His species, the Kryn, looked like massive reptiles covered in blue scales. He was twice the size of any human. His golden eyes showed no emotion as he looked down at the prisoners. These criminals have broken imperial law, the Emperor's voice boomed across the square. They smuggled forbidden technology. They showed disrespect to the Empire. For this, there is only one punishment. Yuna had spent 3 weeks trying to stop this. She had presented evidence that the humans were innocent. She had offered to have Earth's courts handle the trial. She had begged the Galactic Council to intervene. None of it mattered. The Empire did not care about evidence or fairness. They wanted to send a message. Humans were new to the galactic community. Only 50 years had passed since the first contact. Earth controlled just their home system and 5 small colony worlds. Compared to the Empire's 10,000 worlds, humans were nothing. They were insects to be crushed when they annoyed the Emperor. The executioner raised his weapon. It was a beam rifle, standard Imperial military issue. Yuna wanted to look away, but she forced herself to watch. These people deserved to have someone witness their final moments. The first shot hit Do-Yun. He fell forward without making a sound. The executioner moved down the line. One by one, the humans died. The whole thing took less than 5 minutes. When it was over, Emperor Volthor III stood from his throne. Let this be a lesson to all species who think they can defy imperial law. The Empire is eternal. The Empire is just. The Empire is absolute. The transmission ended. Yuna stood in the dark communication chamber, tears running down her face. She had failed them. She had failed all of them. Halfway across the galaxy, Admiral Jiho received the news aboard the ESS Horizon, Earth's largest warship. He was in his private quarters when the communication came through. He watched the execution footage 3 times. His face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the edge of his desk so hard that his knuckles turned white. Jiho was 52 years old. He had spent 30 years in Earth's space fleet, working his way up from a basic pilot to the commander of all human military forces in space. He had fought pirates, stopped smugglers, and rescued colonists from natural disasters. But he had never fought a real war. That was about to change. He called an emergency meeting of his senior officers. Captain Minho was the first to arrive. He was young for a captain, only 35, but he was the best tactical mind in the fleet. Commander Yunji came next, followed by the heads of engineering, intelligence, and ship operations. You've all seen what happened, Jiho said. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. The Empire murdered 30 of our people. They did it publicly. They did it to humiliate us. Earth's government is already calling for restraint, Commander Yunji said. Chancellor Kyungmin sent a message saying we should pursue diplomatic solutions. Jiho slammed his hand on the table. It was the first emotion he had shown. Diplomatic solutions? We tried diplomacy. We tried everything. They killed our people anyway. Captain Minho leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Admiral? I'm suggesting we show the Empire that humans are not insects to be stepped on. I'm suggesting we hit them back. And we hit them hard. 2. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. War with the Empire was suicide. The Empire had millions of warships. Earth had barely 300. The Empire had weapons that could destroy planets. Earth had missiles and beam weapons that were 100 years behind Imperial technology. But Earth also had something the Empire didn't know about. For the past 20 years, human scientists had been studying ancient artifacts found in the outer edges of Earth's solar system. No one knew who had built them or why they had been left behind, but the technology inside them was far beyond anything the current galactic powers possessed. Dr. Taehyun had led the research team. He had reverse-engineered stealth drives, gravity weapons, and AI systems that could think faster than any biological brain. Earth's government had kept it all secret, afraid that revealing such powerful technology would make them a target. Now, that technology was their only hope. "We have the new ships ready," the engineering chief said quietly. 15 stealth cruisers, 20 attack frigates with the gravity cannons, and the AI drone systems are fully operational. Jiho nodded. "How long until we can deploy them?" "Thing. We can launch within 48 hours. Then we launch in 48 hours. Commander Yunji looked worried. "Admiral, Earth's government hasn't authorized military action. If we attack the Empire without approval, we could be charged with treason." "Then charge me with treason," Jiho said. "But I will not let those 30 people die without response. I will not let the Empire think they can murder humans without consequences." Back on Earth, Hana sat in her apartment, staring at a picture of her brother. Do-yoon smiled in the photo, standing in front of his first spaceship assignment. He had been so excited to explore the galaxy. He had sent her messages every week, telling her about the strange aliens he met and the beautiful planets he saw. Now he was gone. Someone knocked on her door. She didn't want to answer it, but the knocking continued. Finally, she opened the door. 2 military officers stood outside. "Hana-kwon?" one of them asked. "Yes. We're from Earth Space Intelligence. We need to talk to you about your brother." She let them in. They sat at her small kitchen table and pulled out a data pad. "Your brother sent a final transmission before he was arrested," the officer said. "It was hidden in a standard communication packet. We only found it today." He turned the data pad toward her. On the screen was a star chart with coordinates marked in red. Below it was a message in Do-yoon's handwriting. "If something happens to me, give this to the military. These are the coordinates for an Imperial weapons research facility. I saw it when our ship was diverted near the border. It's hidden, but it's there. They have something big there. Something dangerous. If war comes, this information might help." Hana read the message 3 times. Her brother had known something was going to happen. He had tried to leave something useful behind. "Will this help?" she asked. The officer nodded. "Admiral Jiho thinks it will. We're planning a strike." "Good," Hana said. Her voice was cold. "I want the Empire to pay for what they did." 3 days later, Earth's assembly met to vote on military action. Chancellor Kyungmin argued for restraint. He spoke for 2 hours about the dangers of war and the need for patience. But when the vote came, the decision was close. 150 representatives voted for military action. 145 voted against it. Humanity was going to war. Admiral Jiho stood on the bridge of the ESS Horizon as his fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. 15 stealth cruisers, 20 attack frigates, 50 support ships. It wasn't much compared to the Empire's might, but it was a start. Captain Minho's voice came through the communication system. "All ships report ready for jump, Admiral." Jiho looked at the stars ahead of them. Somewhere out there was the weapons facility Do-yoon had died to expose. Somewhere out there was an empire that thought humans were weak. They were about to learn differently. "All ships," Jiho said. "Jump." The fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. The war had begun. The Imperial weapons facility hung in space like a metal moon. It was 3 kilometers across and surrounded by defense platforms. 12 Imperial warships patrolled the area around it. The Empire had built it in secret, hidden in a dead system with no habitable planets. They thought it was safe. They were wrong. Captain Minho watched the facility from his stealth cruiser, the ESS Shadow. His ship was invisible to Imperial sensors, hidden by technology the Empire didn't know existed. 14 other stealth cruisers floated nearby, equally invisible. They had been watching the facility for 6 hours, studying its defenses and patrol patterns. All ships are in position, Commander Unji reported from the tactical station. She had transferred to Minho's ship for this mission. Her skills were too valuable to waste anywhere else. Minho studied the tactical display. The facility had strong shields and heavy weapons. The 12 patrol ships were cruisers, each one capable of destroying a normal human ship. But these weren't normal human ships. "Begin the attack," Minho ordered. The stealth cruisers dropped their invisibility and fired. Gravity weapons tore through space, creating massive forces that crushed 3 Imperial ships instantly. The metal hulls crumpled like paper. The other 9 ships tried to respond, but the humans were already moving. AI-controlled drones poured out of the human ships. Thousands of them, each one the size of a car, each one armed with missiles and beam weapons. They swarmed the Imperial ships like angry insects. The Empire's point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. 2 more Imperial ships exploded. The remaining 7 turned to fight, but the human cruisers were faster and more agile. They darted around the Imperial formation, hitting weak points in the shields and armor. It was like watching wolves attack bears. The bears were bigger and stronger, but the wolves were smarter and faster. Inside the facility, alarms screamed. The station commander, a Kryn officer named Vextor, ran to the command center. He couldn't believe what he was seeing on the displays. "Humans?" he shouted. "How did humans get stealth technology?" His second officer didn't have an answer. "Sir, we're losing the patrol ships. We need to activate the station's weapons. Do it. And send a distress call to the 5th Imperial Armada. We need reinforcements. And 4. We need reinforcements." The facility's massive beam cannons came online. They were designed to destroy battleships. Surely they could handle a few human cruisers, but the humans didn't fight like the Empire expected. When the beam cannons fired, the human ships scattered in all directions. They moved in random patterns, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted, and while the facility wasted energy shooting at fast-moving ships, the AI drones attacked the weapons themselves. Explosions rippled across the facility's surface. One by one, the beam cannons went dark. "We're defenseless," Vextor's second officer screamed. Minho watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. "Commander Unji, take us in close. Target the reactor cores." The ESS Shadow dove toward the facility. Its gravity weapons charged up, drawing power from the ship's core. The weapon was experimental and dangerous. If used incorrectly, it could tear the Shadow apart. But Unji was the best weapons officer in the fleet. She knew exactly what to do. "Firing," she said. The gravity weapon created a black hole the size of a basketball. It lasted only half a second, but that was enough. The black hole appeared inside the facility's main reactor, and the reactor exploded. A chain reaction tore through the entire structure. Secondary explosions bloomed like flowers of fire and metal. The last 7 Imperial patrol ships tried to retreat, but the human fleet cut them off. It took another 20 minutes of fighting, but eventually all 12 Imperial ships were destroyed. The weapons facility was nothing but debris floating in space. Minho allowed himself a small smile. "All ships, report status." The responses came back quickly. "Minor damage to 3 ships. No casualties." It was a perfect victory. "Send a message to Admiral Jiho," Minho said. "Mission successful. The facility is destroyed." On Nexera Prime, Emperor Valthor III received the news in his throne room. He had been meeting with his advisors about trade agreements when the military report arrived. At first, he thought it was a mistake. "Say that again," he demanded. The messenger, A young Kryn officer trembled as he spoke. "The research facility in Sector 7 has been destroyed, Your Majesty. All 12 patrol ships were lost. The attackers were human." The throne room went silent. The Emperor's advisors looked at each other in shock. Humans? Humans didn't have the technology to defeat Imperial warships. Humans barely had a space fleet at all. Lord Vexar, the Emperor's chief military advisor, stepped forward. He was old for a Kryn. His blue scales faded to gray. He had served 3 emperors and fought in a dozen wars. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "we may have underestimated the humans." Emperor Valthor III's eyes blazed with anger. "Underestimated? They are insects. They have been in space for less than a century. Insects that just destroyed a major military facility and 12 warships," Vexar pointed out. "We need to take this seriously. See. AT. Imana. AT. The Emperor stood from his throne. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, and when he was angry, everyone feared him. "I want the 5th Imperial Armada deployed immediately. I want every human colony world blockaded. And I want Earth itself brought to its knees. These insects need to remember their place." On Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. People celebrated in the streets. For the first time, humanity had struck back at the Empire. They had shown that humans were not helpless. But not everyone was celebrating. Dr. Taehyun sat in his laboratory, surrounded by blueprints and holographic displays. He was the man who had created the gravity weapons and the stealth drives. He was the man who had made the victory possible. But he felt no joy. His assistant, a young woman named Jisoo, found him staring at a news broadcast showing the destroyed Imperial facility. "You should be proud," she said. "My weapons killed over 3,000 people on that station," Taehyun replied quietly. "Most of them weren't soldiers. They were working for the Empire. The same Empire that murdered 30 of our people." Taehyun turned to look at her. "Does that make it right? Does revenge justify anything we do?" Jisoo didn't have an answer. The Empire's response came 3 days later. The 5th Imperial Armada appeared above the human colony world of New Terra. 200 warships against the small defense force of 15 human ships. It wasn't even a fair fight. But Admiral Jiho had known this would happen. He had already evacuated most of New Terra's population. The people who remained were volunteers. Soldiers who knew what they were signing up for. General Salmon commanded the ground forces on New Terra. She was 48 years old and had fought in border conflicts before joining Earth's military. She knew how to fight a larger enemy. "All units, fall back to prepared positions," she ordered. "Let them land. Let them think they've won. Then we show them what humans can do." The Imperial forces landed in waves. Thousands of Kryn soldiers in heavy armor, supported by tanks and gunships. They marched toward New Terra's main city. Expecting an easy victory, they marched into a trap. Human soldiers had spent 3 days mining the entire area. When the Imperial forces reached the kill zone, Salmon gave the order. Explosives detonated across a 5-kilometer area. The ground itself seemed to explode. Hundreds of Imperial soldiers died in the first seconds. The survivors tried to retreat, but human fighters appeared from hidden positions. They used the terrain, fighting from buildings and underground tunnels. The Imperial forces had superior weapons and armor, but the humans knew the land. It became a brutal close-quarters battle. The kind of fighting that negated the Empire's technological advantages. A place where human determination and willingness to sacrifice made the difference. The battle raged for 18 hours. When it finally ended, the Imperial forces had captured the city, but they had lost over 2,000 soldiers doing it. General Salmon and her forces had evacuated during the final hours, disappearing into the wilderness. On the Imperial flagship, the commander looked at the casualty reports with disbelief. Taking one small city had cost him 2,000 soldiers. New Terra had a dozen major cities and hundreds of small settlements. At this rate, Occupying the entire planet would cost him his entire army. Back on Nexera Prime, Emperor Valther III was growing frustrated. The war should have been over by now. The humans should have surrendered. But instead, they kept fighting. They kept using tactics the Empire had never seen before. Worse, some of the other species in the Empire were watching. They saw the humans resist, and they started to wonder. If humans could fight back, maybe they could too. Lord Vexar tried again to warn the Emperor. Your Majesty, we need to consider a different approach. The humans are more dangerous than we thought. Perhaps we should negotiate. Negotiate? The Emperor roared. I do not negotiate with insects. Deploy the First Imperial Fleet. I want Earth destroyed. If we kill their homeworld, the rest will surrender. Vexar bowed his head. He knew the Emperor was making a mistake, but there was nothing he could do. When the Emperor made up his mind, no one could change it. Admiral Jiho received intelligence about the First Imperial Fleet within hours. The Empire's most powerful force, commanded by their best admiral, heading straight for Earth. He had to make a choice. He could bring his fleet back to defend Earth, or he could continue his offensive operations and trust Earth's defenses to hold. It was an impossible decision. But Jiho had spent 30 years making impossible decisions. He called his senior officers to a conference. Captain Minho appeared on the holographic display, along with Commander Unji and the other ship commanders. The Empire is sending their first fleet to Earth, Jiho said. Over 500 warships. If they reach Earth, our home planet will be destroyed. Everyone looked grim. They all knew what this meant. I'm splitting our forces, Jiho continued. Commander Unji will take half the fleet back to Earth to reinforce the defenses. Captain Minho and I will continue offensive operations. We're going to hit the Empire's industrial worlds. We're going to make them hurt so badly that they have to pull back from Earth. Sir, Unji said carefully, if we split our forces, both groups will be vulnerable. I know, Jiho said, but if we concentrate on defense, we're just waiting to die. Our only chance is to attack. We have to make the Empire fear us. The orders went out. The fleet split into two groups. Unji jumped toward Earth with 75 ships. Jiho and Minho took 80 ships deeper into Imperial territory. Their target was Thalor, the Empire's main industrial world, the planet that built 60% of their warships. If they could destroy the shipyards there, they could cripple the Empire's ability to build new ships. It was a desperate plan. But humanity was fighting a desperate war. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Minho stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the stars. He thought about the 30 people who had been executed. He thought about Doyun and all the others who had died. This war had started with an execution, but it was going to end with the Empire learning a hard lesson. Never underestimate humanity. Thalor was a world of metal and fire. From space, it looked like a giant factory wrapped around a planet. Orbital shipyards stretched for thousands of kilometers. Construction platforms the size of cities floated in neat formations. Every day, new Imperial warships rolled out of those yards, ready to enforce the Emperor's will across the galaxy. Admiral Jiho stood on the bridge of the ESS Horizon and studied the tactical display. Thalor was defended by 300 warships and countless defense platforms. The orbital shipyards themselves had enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. Sir, we're picking up a transmission from Earth, the communication officer said. It's Commander Unji. Jiho activated the holographic display. Unji's face appeared, and she looked exhausted. Admiral, the First Imperial Fleet has reached Earth. We're engaging them now. It's bad, sir. Really bad. They have over 500 ships, and we have less than 200 counting our defense platforms. Can you hold? Jiho asked. For a while. But sir, if you don't succeed at Thalor, there won't be anything to come back to. The transmission ended. Jiho felt the weight of that statement. Everything depended on the next few hours. Captain Minho approached him. All ships are ready, Admiral. We can begin the attack on your order. Jiho nodded. Then let's show the Empire what happens when they threaten our home. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Thalor system. Immediately, alarms screamed across every Imperial ship and station. 300 Imperial warships turned toward the human fleet. But the humans didn't charge in like the Empire expected. Instead, they launched their AI drones first. Thousands upon thousands of small attack craft poured out of the human ships. They formed into groups and accelerated toward the Imperial defenses. The Imperial commanders had learned about the human drones from previous battles. They had prepared countermeasures. Point defense systems tracked the drones and fired in coordinated patterns. Hundreds of drones exploded in the first minute, but for every drone that died, 10 more took its place. The sheer number of them was overwhelming. They crashed into Imperial ships like a metal wave. Some carried explosives. Some had beam weapons. Some just rammed into vital systems, destroying themselves but taking critical ship components with them. The Imperial formation began to break apart as ships tried to deal with the drone swarms. That's when the human fleet struck. Captain Minho led 20 stealth cruisers straight into the heart of the Imperial formation. His ships appeared from nowhere, their gravity weapons already firing. Imperial ships twisted and crumpled under impossible forces. The neat military formation became chaos. Focus fire on the command ship, Minho ordered. He had identified the Imperial flagship, a massive dreadnought that coordinated the entire defense. If they could kill it, the rest of the Imperial forces would lose their central command. The ESS Shadow and 5 other cruisers concentrated their fire on the dreadnought. Its shields held for almost 30 seconds. An impressive feat. But 30 seconds wasn't enough. The shields collapsed, and gravity weapons tore into the ship's hull. The dreadnought broke in half, its reactor going critical. The explosion was bright enough to be seen from the surface of Thalor. Admiral Jiho watched the battle from the horizon. His ship hung back, directing the overall strategy. He saw the Imperial forces starting to panic. They had never faced an enemy like this before, an enemy that didn't follow their rules. Send in the second wave, he ordered. 40 attack frigates accelerated into the battle. These ships were smaller than cruisers, but packed devastating firepower. They targeted the orbital defense platforms, the giant weapon stations that protected the shipyards. On Thalor's surface, General Salmon led the ground assault. She had landed with 5,000 Marines on the far side of the planet, away from the main battle. While everyone's attention was on the space combat, her forces struck at the surface installations that powered the orbital defenses. Charges are set, her second-in-command reported. We're ready to blow the primary reactor. 2. Do it, Salmon ordered. The explosion was massive. The reactor complex was the main power source for half the orbital defenses. When it went up, a dozen defense platforms went dark. Their weapons stopped firing. Their shields collapsed. The human frigates swept in and destroyed them. But the Empire was far from defeated. Over 200 warships still fought, and they were starting to organize. An Imperial admiral named Korthus took command of the remaining forces. He was a veteran of 50 battles, and he knew how to turn a losing fight around. All ships form defensive spheres around the shipyards, he ordered. We protect the yards at all costs. Let the humans come to us. The Imperial ships pulled back into a tight formation around the orbital shipyards. It was a smart move. Now, the humans would have to fight through a concentrated defense, and they would have to be careful not to damage the shipyards themselves. After all, wasn't that why they were here? To destroy the yards? Captain Minho saw what the Imperials were doing. They're using the shipyards as shields. They think we won't fire on them. They're right, Admiral Jiho said over the communication channel. We need those shipyards destroyed. But we need to do it carefully. We can't just blow them up from here. We need to go inside. Armand, Minho understood. You want a boarding action. I want you to take a team into the largest shipyard. Plant charges on the main support structures. When those yards fall, they'll take half the Imperial fleet with them. It was a crazy plan. Boarding actions were dangerous even in the best circumstances. But this wasn't the best circumstances. This was a massive battle, with explosions and weapons fire everywhere. I'll do it, Minho said. He was already calling up his best Marines. Give me 30 minutes. Minho's ship, the ESS Shadow, broke away from the main battle. It headed straight for the largest shipyard, a construction platform 20 kilometers long. Imperial ships tried to intercept, but other human vessels provided cover. The Shadow dodged through weapons fire, its shields flickering under the bombardment. Prepare for emergency boarding, Minho ordered. Full Marine complement, heavy weapons. The Shadow slammed into the shipyard's docking port. The impact shook the entire ship, but the docking clamps held. Marines poured out of the ship's assault bays, moving into the shipyard's corridors. The Imperials fought back. Kryn soldiers in heavy armor met the human Marines in brutal close combat. Beam weapons flashed in the narrow corridors. Explosions rocked the structure. Minho led from the front, his weapon cutting down Imperial soldiers. He had one goal: reach the main support structure and plant the charges. Everything else was secondary. They fought through 3 levels of defenders. The battle was savage and personal. Humans died. Kryn died. The corridors ran red with blood from a dozen different species. Finally, Minho's team reached the central support column. It was a massive structure of metal and composite materials, holding up the entire shipyard. Plant the charges, Minho ordered. We have 5 minutes before the Imperials bring reinforcements. His demolition expert, a sergeant named Yunho, began setting the explosives. Each charge was carefully placed to bring down the structure in the most catastrophic way possible. Charges set, Yunho reported. Timer is running. We have 10 minutes to get out. All teams, fall back to the ship, Minho ordered. They ran. Behind them, Imperial soldiers gave chase. A running gun battle through the shipyard's corridors, racing against a ticking clock. The ESS Shadow was waiting at the docking port. Marines poured back onto the ship. Minho was the last one through, covering the retreat. An Imperial soldier shot him in the shoulder. He fell, his weapon clattering away. Yunho grabbed him and dragged him into the ship. Go! 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 He screamed. The Shadow detached from the shipyard and burned hard away from the structure. Imperial ships tried to follow, but they were too slow. The charges detonated. The shipyard's support structure exploded in a chain reaction. The entire 20-kilometer platform began to collapse. It fell toward the planet, dragging everything with it. Imperial ships that had been using it for cover were crushed or torn apart. The falling shipyard created a debris field that killed another 50 Imperial vessels. It was chaos on a scale the Empire had never seen. Admiral Jiho watched from the horizon. He felt no joy at the destruction, only grim satisfaction. All ships, press the attack. Don't let them recover. The human fleet surged forward. The Imperial forces were broken and scattered. What had been an organized defense became a desperate attempt to survive. On Earth, Commander Unji saw the news of Thalor's shipyards falling. It came just as the first Imperial fleet was preparing for another assault on Earth's defenses. When the Imperial Admiral received word that Thalor had fallen, he hesitated. His orders were to destroy Earth. But if the main shipyards were gone, the Empire couldn't replace his losses. He decided to pull back and wait for new orders. Earth was saved. For now. But the cost had been terrible. Captain Minho lay in the Shadow's medical bay, his shoulder injury severe. The ship's doctor, a woman named Heejin, worked frantically to save him. How is he? Commander Unji asked. She had jumped back from Earth to join the final assault on Thalor. He'll live, Heejin said, but he won't be fighting for a while. That shot nearly killed him. Admiral Jiho came to visit Minho in the medical bay. The captain was conscious, but weak. We won, Jiho said simply. Minho managed a small smile. Did we? Look at the casualty reports, Admiral. We lost 40 ships, over 8,000 people. We destroyed the shipyards. But at what cost? Jiho had no answer. The victory at Thalor had crippled the Empire's ability to build new ships, but it had also cost humanity dearly. The ESS Horizon itself had taken heavy damage. Dozens of other ships were barely functional. The war isn't over, Jiho said. The Empire still has thousands of ships. We hurt them today, but they can still hurt us back. On Nexara Prime, Emperor Valthor III received the news of Thalor's fall. His throne room was silent, as his advisors waited for his reaction. Lord Vexar spoke carefully. Your Majesty, we must consider. Silence, the Emperor said. His voice was cold and deadly. I will not hear talk of defeat. I will not hear talk of negotiation. These humans have destroyed Imperial property. They have killed Imperial citizens. For this, they will pay. But Your Majesty, the shipyards can be rebuilt. The Emperor roared. He stood from his throne, his massive form towering over everyone. I have ruled this empire for 40 years. I have conquered 100 worlds. I will not be defeated by a species that barely knows how to leave their own planet. He turned to his military council. Activate the Oblivion Array. The room went silent. Even Vexar, who had served 3 emperors, looked shocked. Your Majesty, he said quietly, the Oblivion Array is forbidden. It is a weapon of last resort. Using it would end this war, the Emperor finished. The humans think they are strong because they destroyed some shipyards. I will show them real power. I will show them what happens when you challenge the Empire. The Oblivion Array was an ancient weapon, built during the Empire's early wars of conquest. It could destroy entire star systems, turning planets into ash and stars into dying embers. It had been used only twice in galactic history, and both times, entire civilizations had been wiped out. Which system should be targeted? An admiral asked quietly. Emperor Valthor III smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Choose one of the human colony worlds. Make it one with a large population. I want the humans to watch as billions of their people die. Then we will see if they continue to fight. In his laboratory on Earth, Dr. Tae-hyun detected unusual energy signatures coming from Imperial space. He had been monitoring their communications and sensor networks, trying to predict their next move. What he found terrified him. They're powering up the Oblivion Array, he said to his assistant Jisoo. They're actually going to use it. Can we stop it? She asked. Tae-hyun pulled up the schematics he had collected on the ancient weapon. He had studied it for years, hoping the Empire would never be crazy enough to use it. Maybe, he said. The weapon uses technology similar to what we found in the artifacts. If we can get close enough, we might be able to disable it. But someone would have to manually override the core systems, and the radiation levels near the core would be lethal. How lethal? You would have maybe 5 minutes before the radiation killed you. Jisoo was quiet for a moment. We need to tell Admiral Jiho. Tae-hyun sent the message, knowing that he had just given humanity one slim chance to prevent catastrophe. But he also knew that whoever took that mission would not be coming back. The news of Earth's victory at Thalor spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. On 100 worlds, people from a dozen different species watched the recordings of human ships destroying the Empire's greatest shipyards. They saw a small fleet defeat a force 3 times its size. They saw determination defeat overwhelming power. And they started to hope. Ambassador Yuna had been working quietly for months. While the military fought the war in space, she fought a different kind of battle. She met with representatives from other species in secret. She shared intelligence. She made promises. She showed them that the Empire could be beaten. Now, her work was about to pay off. She stood in a hidden facility on the planet Rendara, a world on the edge of Imperial space. 15 ambassadors from 15 different species sat around a table. Some of them were from small, weak civilizations. Others represented powerful worlds that had been forced into the Empire through conquest. We all know why we're here. Yuna began. The Empire has ruled through fear for too long. They take our resources. They draft our people into their military. They execute anyone who questions their authority. But Earth has shown us that the Empire can be resisted. A tall, thin alien named Korin spoke up. His species, the Velathi, had been conquered 200 years ago. Earth has ships with advanced technology. We do not. How can we fight the Empire with outdated weapons and small fleets? Together, Yuna said simply. Separately, each of our worlds is weak. But together, we represent over 1 billion people and hundreds of star systems. The Empire cannot fight all of us at once. Another ambassador, a female from the reptilian Sarnak species named Vessa, leaned forward. What you're proposing is rebellion. If we fail, the Empire will destroy our worlds. If we do nothing, the Empire will destroy us anyway, Yuna replied. How many of your people have they taken for labor? How many of your soldiers have died in the Empire's wars? How long will you accept their rule? The room was silent. Every ambassador knew she was right. Earth is offering military support. Yuna continued. We will share our technology. We will train your forces. We will fight alongside you. But we need you to make a choice. Stay slaves to the Empire, or join us and fight for freedom. One by one, the ambassadors agreed. They formed the Free Systems Coalition, a union of species united against the Empire. It was small and weak compared to the Empire's might, but it was a start. On Nexera Prime, Emperor Valther III watched the formation of the coalition with fury. His intelligence services had discovered the meeting on Rendara, too late to stop it. Now, 15 species had openly declared their support for humanity. Crush them, the Emperor ordered. Send the 4th and 7th Armadas. I want Rendara reduced to ash. Lord Vexar stepped forward. He looked older than ever, worn down by months of war. Your Majesty, if we attack Rendara now, we will only drive more species to join the coalition. Perhaps we should... Should what? The Emperor interrupted. Negotiate? Show weakness? Every moment we hesitate, more systems will join the rebels. Then perhaps we are pursuing the wrong strategy, Vexar said quietly. This war has cost us thousands of ships and hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Our shipyards are damaged. Our economy is strained. Maybe it is time to consider peace. Emperor Valthor III stood from his throne. His eyes burned with rage. You dare suggest surrender? I suggest wisdom, Your Majesty. The Emperor's hand shot out faster than anyone expected. He grabbed Vexar by the throat and lifted him off the ground. The old advisor struggled. But the Emperor's strength was too great. This is what happens to those who counsel weakness, the Emperor said. He squeezed, and Vexar's neck snapped. The Emperor dropped the body and looked at his other advisors. Does anyone else wish to suggest peace? No one spoke. They were all too terrified. Good, the Emperor said. Now, activate the Oblivion Array. Target Rendara. I want every being on that planet dead. The Oblivion Array was located in a hidden system deep in Imperial territory. It was a massive construct, 20 kilometers across, built around an artificial black hole. When activated, it could focus the black hole's energy into a beam that would tear apart planets and sterilize entire star systems. The weapon began powering up. It would take 3 days to reach full charge. In 3 days, 4 billion people on Rendara would die. Admiral Jiho received the warning from Dr. Taehyun. He immediately called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. Captain Minho attended via hologram, still recovering from his wounds. We have 3 days to stop this weapon, Jiho said. If we fail, the coalition loses its capital, and 4 billion people die. Do we have a plan? Commander Yunji asked. Dr. Taehyun says the weapon can be disabled, but someone needs to get inside and manually override the core. The problem is that the core is surrounded by lethal radiation. Whoever goes in won't come back. The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. "I'll do it," a voice said. They all turned. Hana stood in the doorway. She had been working with the military since her brother's death, helping to develop new weapons and technology. But now, she was volunteering for a suicide mission. "Absolutely not," Jiho said. "You're a civilian. This is a military operation. My brother died to give you information that helped win the war," Hana said. Her voice was steady and determined. "I've spent the last year building weapons to kill the Empire's soldiers. Let me do something that matters. Let me save 4 billion lives." Jiho wanted to refuse, but he saw the look in her eyes. She had made up her mind. And the truth was, they needed volunteers for this mission. He couldn't order someone to certain death. "If you do this," he said quietly. "I know," Hana said. The mission to destroy the Oblivion Array was the most dangerous one humanity had attempted. General Salmon led the ground forces. They would infiltrate the facility while the space fleet kept the defenders busy. Hana was part of Salmon's team. She wore light armor and carried the override codes Dr. Taehyun had developed. Her job was simple: get to the core, activate the override, and shut down the weapon before it could fire. The fleet approached the Oblivion Array in stealth mode. The facility was defended by 200 warships and countless defense platforms. It was a fortress. "All ships, attack," Admiral Jiho ordered. The human fleet dropped stealth and opened fire. The battle was immediate and brutal. The Imperial defenders had been expecting an attack and were ready. But they weren't ready for what came next. Ships from the coalition arrived. Velothi cruisers, Sarnak destroyers, and vessels from a dozen other species. They weren't as advanced as human ships, but there were hundreds of them. The combined fleet overwhelmed the Imperial defenses. General Salmon's assault ships slipped through the chaos and docked with the Oblivion Array. Marines poured into the facility, fighting through corridors and chambers. The Imperial defenders were elite troops, but the coalition forces fought with desperate determination. Hana moved with Salmon's team, protected by Marines. They fought their way deeper into the facility, toward the core. The radiation levels increased with every step. Warning alarms blared on their suits. "We're approaching lethal levels," one of the Marines said. "We need to turn back. Keep moving," Salmon ordered. "We don't stop until the mission is complete." They reached the core chamber. It was a massive room dominated by a swirling black hole contained in energy fields. The radiation was so intense that their suit alarms were screaming. "This is as far as we go," Salmon said. She looked at Hana. "The override terminal is in the center of the room. You'll have maybe 5 minutes," said. Hana nodded. She checked her equipment one last time, then stepped toward the core. The radiation hit her like a physical force. Even through her suit, she could feel it burning her cells. She pushed forward, step by step, until she reached the terminal. Her hands shook as she entered the override codes. The terminal resisted, throwing up security measures. But Dr. Taehyun had planned for this. The codes broke through one layer after another. Outside, the battle raged. Captain Minho, commanding from his ship despite his injuries, coordinated the fleet's attack. Coalition ships died by the dozens, but they kept fighting. They were buying time for Hana. At the terminal, Hana entered the final code. The system accepted it. The Oblivion Array began shutting down. The artificial black hole started to collapse, its energy dissipating. Hana fell to her knees. She could feel her body failing. The radiation had done too much damage. She activated her communication system one last time. "Admiral Jiho," she said, her voice weak. "Mission complete. The weapon is shut down. Hana, get out of there," Jiho said. "We can still save you." Jiho, "No, you can't," she replied. She was looking at the collapsed black hole, watching its energy fade. But that's okay. My brother gave his life to start this war. I'm giving mine to help end it. Tell humanity that it was worth it. The transmission cut out. Hana's suit systems failed, and she died in the core chamber, surrounded by the weapon she had destroyed. General Salmon pulled her team back. They fought their way out of the facility as the Coalition fleet destroyed the remaining Imperial defenders. The Oblivion Array was saved from firing, but it was also destroyed in the fighting. It would never threaten anyone again. On Rendara, 4 billion people celebrated. They had been hours away from death, and now they were saved. The Coalition had protected them. Humanity had protected them. But there was no celebration on Earth. Admiral Jiho stood in his quarters, holding a datapad with Hana's final message. He had lost so many people in this war. Every victory came with a price. Sir, Commander Yunji said from the doorway. The Coalition is requesting an emergency meeting. More species want to join. They're inspired by what happened at Rendara. Jiho looked up. How many? 23 species. If they all join, the Coalition will control over 500 star systems. Jiho nodded slowly. The Coalition was growing. The Empire was weakening. But the Emperor still had thousands of ships and would not surrender easily. On Nexera Prime, Emperor Valthor III received the news of the Oblivion Array's destruction. He sat on his throne, silent and still. His advisors waited nervously, afraid of his reaction. Finally, the Emperor spoke. How many ships do we have left? His military advisor, a younger officer who had replaced Vexor, checked his datapad. 7,000 warships, Your Majesty. But many are damaged or low on supplies. The loss of the Thalor shipyards has... I don't care about excuses, the Emperor said. I want every ship we have mobilized. I want them all sent to one place. Where, Your Majesty? Earth, the Emperor said. We end this war where it began. We destroy humanity's homeworld. Once Earth is gone, the Coalition will collapse. The advisor hesitated. Your Majesty, intelligence suggests the Coalition is planning something similar. They're gathering their forces for a major offensive. Let them, the Emperor said. Let them bring everything they have. We will meet them at Earth and crush them once and for all. The stage was set for the final battle. Both sides were gathering their forces. The Empire's remaining might against the Coalition's desperate hope. 7,000 Imperial ships against thousands of Coalition vessels. Admiral Jiho knew what was coming. He sent out a call to every human ship, every Coalition vessel, and every species that wanted freedom from the Empire. Come to Earth, his message said. Come and fight for a galaxy where no Emperor can execute 30 innocent people without consequence. Come and fight for freedom. They came. From hundreds of star systems, ships began jumping toward Earth. The largest fleet in galactic history was assembling, and at the center of it all was humanity's homeworld, the planet that had sparked a rebellion. Chancellor Kyungmin had been Earth's civilian leader before the war. He had argued for peace and restraint, but he was dead now, killed by Imperial agents. His replacement, a woman named Bo Young, stood with Admiral Jiho and looked at the fleet gathering above Earth. Do you think we can win? She asked. Jiho looked at the thousands of ships filling Earth's orbit. Human vessels, alien cruisers, and converted cargo ships, armed with whatever weapons they could find. I don't know, he said honestly. But we're going to try. Because if we don't stop the Empire here, no one will. The final war was about to begin. The fleet above Earth was larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. 10,000 ships from 50 different species filled the space around humanity's homeworld. Some were advanced warships with powerful weapons. Others were converted freighters, their cargo holds replaced with missile batteries. All of them had come to make a stand. Admiral Jiho stood on the bridge of the ESS Horizon and watched the fleet assemble. He was 53 years old now, but he felt ancient. The war had aged him. He had lost friends, colleagues, and thousands of soldiers under his command. But this was it. The final battle. Win or lose, the war would end here. All coalition ships are reporting ready, Commander Unji said. She had become his most trusted officer, the one person who could always speak honestly with him. The Empire's fleet should arrive within the hour. How many ships do they have? Our scouts report 7,000. Maybe more. It's the largest force the Empire has ever gathered in one place. Jiho nodded. 7,000 against 10,000. The coalition had the numbers, but the Empire had better ships and more experience. This would be close. Captain Minho approached. He had recovered from his injuries at Thalor, though he still moved stiffly. Admiral, I've been coordinating with the coalition commanders. Most of them have never fought in a battle this size. They're scared. They should be, Jiho said. We're all scared. But fear won't stop the Empire. Only we can do that. On the surface of Earth, 5 billion people watched the sky. They knew what was coming. If the coalition lost, the Empire would destroy their world. Cities had been evacuated. Children had been moved to underground shelters. Everyone waited. Dr. Taehyun stood in his laboratory, making final adjustments to Earth's planetary defense grid. He had spent the last month upgrading every weapon, every shield, every system. If the coalition fleet failed, Earth would have to defend itself. Sir, we're detecting the Empire's fleet, his assistant Jisoo said. They're coming out of hyperspace. Taehyun pulled up the sensor display. 7,000 Imperial warships appeared on the edge of Earth's star system. They formed into attack formations, massive wedges of ships designed to smash through any defense. At the center of the Imperial fleet was the Emperor's personal dreadnought. A ship 5 kilometers long and carrying enough firepower to destroy a planet. Emperor Valther III stood on its bridge, looking at the coalition fleet with contempt. Look at them, he said to his officers. A rabble of inferior species, thinking they can defeat the Empire. We will crush them like the insects they are. His fleet admiral, a Kryn named Torvan, studied the tactical display. Your Majesty, the coalition has superior numbers. Perhaps you should follow orders, the Emperor interrupted. All ships. Advance. Destroy everything. The Imperial fleet surged forward. 7,000 ships accelerating toward Earth, weapons charging, shields at full power. It was like watching a metal avalanche. Admiral Jiho watched them come. He let them get closer. Let them commit to their attack formation. Then he gave the order. All ships, execute Plan Omega. The coalition fleet didn't charge forward to meet the Imperials. Instead, they scattered. Ships broke formation and spread out across the star system. The Empire's neat wedge formations found nothing to hit. What are they doing? Emperor Valther III demanded. Where did they go? They're everywhere, Your Majesty, Torvan said. They've spread out across the entire system. The Emperor realized too late what had happened. The coalition wasn't going to fight a traditional battle. They were going to fight the way humans had been fighting all along. Hit and run. Guerrilla tactics. Chaos. The Imperial fleet found itself under attack from a dozen directions at once. Coalition ships appeared, fired, and jumped away before the Imperials could respond. AI drones swarmed from hidden positions. Stealth ships struck at vulnerable targets. It was madness. It was chaos. And the Empire's rigid military doctrine couldn't handle it. Captain Minho commanded a strike group of 20 human cruisers. They targeted the Empire's supply ships, the vessels carrying ammunition and reactor fuel. Without supplies, the Imperial warships would be helpless. All ships, focus fire on that supply convoy. Minho ordered. His ships appeared from stealth and opened fire with gravity weapons. 3 supply ships were crushed before the escorts could react. The surviving ships tried to escape, but coalition vessels from other species cut them off. The battle spread across the entire star system. Near Jupiter, A group of Valathi ships engaged an Imperial battle group. Near Mars, Sarnak destroyers fought a running battle with Kryn cruisers. The space between Earth and the Sun became a massive battlefield. General Salmon led the defense of Earth's orbital stations. The Empire had sent boarding parties to capture Earth's defense platforms, hoping to use them against the coalition. But Salmon's Marines were ready. "Let them board," she ordered. "Then seal the airlocks and vent the sections therein." It was brutal, but effective. Imperial soldiers found themselves trapped in sections of the stations that suddenly lost atmosphere. They died by the hundreds. The battle raged for 3 days. Both sides took terrible losses. Thousands of ships were destroyed. Millions of people died. The space around Earth was filled with debris and wreckage. On the 4th day, Admiral Jiho saw an opening. The Imperial fleet had concentrated around the Emperor's dreadnought, trying to protect him. It created a gap in their formation. "Commander Unji, take every ship we have left and hit that gap. Drive right through their formation. If we can reach the Emperor's ship, we can end this." Unji looked at the tactical display. The gap was there, but getting to it meant flying through a killing field of weapons fire. Half the coalition ships might not make it. "All ships, form up on the horizon," she ordered. "We're making a run at the Emperor." 3,000 coalition ships, all that remained of the original 10,000, accelerated toward the Imperial formation. The Empire threw everything they had at them: beam weapons, missiles, kinetic rounds. The coalition ships died by the hundreds, but they kept coming. The ESS Horizon led the charge. Admiral Jiho stood on the bridge, watching his ships fall one by one. The Horizon's shields were failing. Fires burned on 3 decks. But they were almost there. "Ramming distance to the Emperor's dreadnought," the navigation officer reported. "All weapons. Fire everything we have," Jiho ordered. The Horizon and 50 other ships focused their fire on the dreadnought. Its shields held, then flickered, then collapsed. The massive ship's armor cracked under the bombardment. On the dreadnought's bridge, Emperor Valthor III realized he was about to die. His ship was breaking apart around him. His fleet was shattered. The war was lost. "Your Majesty, we must evacuate," Torvin said. "Never," the Emperor growled. "I am the Emperor. I do not run from insects." A gravity weapon hit the dreadnought's bridge. The structure collapsed. Emperor Valthor III, ruler of the Galactic Empire for 40 years, died in the explosion. With the Emperor dead, the Imperial fleet fell apart. Some ships tried to fight on. Others attempted to retreat. Many just shut down their weapons and surrendered. The battle was over. Admiral Jiho sat in his command chair and looked at the casualty reports. Of the 10,000 coalition ships that had started the battle, less than 2,000 remained. Over 3 million people had died. Earth itself had taken damage from orbital bombardment. Parts of Europe and Asia were in ruins, but they had won. The Empire was broken. The Emperor was dead. "Send a message to all Imperial ships," Jiho said quietly. "The war is over. Any ship that surrenders will be treated with respect. Any ship that continues fighting will be destroyed." Most of the Imperial ships surrendered within hours. Their crews were tired and defeated. Without the Emperor to enforce discipline, they had no reason to keep fighting. Captain Minho's ship had survived, though it was badly damaged. He sent a message to Jiho. "Admiral, what do we do now?" Jiho looked out at the wreckage floating in Earth's orbit. Now we try to build something better than what the Empire had. A galaxy where no one species rules over all the others." On Rendara, Ambassador Yuna called an emergency meeting of the Coalition. Representatives from 50 species gathered to discuss the future. "The Empire is broken," she said. "But we cannot let chaos take its place. We need a new government. One based on equality and democracy. One where every species has a voice." They worked for weeks, crafting a new constitution. The Galactic Council was dissolved, and replaced with the Coalition Senate, where every member species had equal representation. Laws would be made by votes, not imperial decree. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments and disagreements. Some species wanted revenge on the Empire's core worlds. Others wanted to forgive and move forward. But slowly, they built something new. General Salmon oversaw the peaceful transition of former imperial worlds. It was delicate work. Many planets had been part of the Empire for centuries. They didn't know how to govern themselves. "We're not conquerors," Salmon told her soldiers. "We're here to help these people build free societies. Treat them with respect." Dr. Taehyun spent his days working on reconstruction. His weapons had helped win the war, but now he wanted to build things that helped people. Medical technology, food production systems, clean energy. "I can't bring back the people my weapons killed," he told Jisoo, "but I can try to make the galaxy better for those who survived." 10 years after the final battle, a memorial was built on Earth. It listed the names of everyone who had died in the war. Millions of names, from dozens of species. At the top of the list were the 30 humans whose execution had started it all. Admiral Jiho attended the memorial's dedication ceremony. He was 63 now, retired from military service. He walked slowly to the wall where the 30 names were inscribed. He found Doyun's name and placed a flower beneath it. "We won," he said quietly to the name on the wall. "But the cost was so high. Was it worth it?" "I still don't know," a young voice spoke behind him. "My teacher says you saved the galaxy." Jiho turned. A child stood there, maybe 10 years old. She was human, with bright eyes full of hope. "What's your name?" Jiho asked. "Nari. My parents died in the war, but they left me messages saying they were fighting so I could grow up free." Jiho knelt down to her level. "Your parents were brave. All the people who died were brave. They gave everything, so you could have a better life. Was it worth it?" Nari asked. Jiho looked at her. She represented everything they had fought for. A future where children could grow up without fear of tyranny. A future where no emperor could execute innocent people without consequence. "Yes," he said finally. "It was worth it." Later, Jiho met with Captain Minho and Commander Unji at a quiet cafe in Seoul. They were old friends now, bound by the war they had survived. "Did you see the news?" Minho asked. "The Coalition Senate just approved funding for a joint military academy. Students from every member species will train together. No more empire," Unji said. "No more one species ruling over everyone else. We actually did it." Jiho sipped his tea. "We did it. But we must never forget what it cost. 3 million dead. Entire worlds damaged. Families destroyed. We won the war. But we can't let pride make us forget the price." They sat in silence for a moment, remembering the friends they had lost. Hana, who had sacrificed herself to save billions. The thousands of soldiers who had died in the final battle. Lord Vexar, executed by his own emperor for suggesting peace. "Do you think it will last?" Minho asked. "The coalition, I mean. Do you think 100 years from now, the galaxy will still be free?" "I don't know," Jiho said. "But we gave them a chance. That's all we could do." On Nexara Prime, the former imperial capital, children from a dozen different species played together in a park. They didn't remember the empire. They didn't remember the executions and the tyranny. They just knew they were free. In a school nearby, a teacher told them about the war. She spoke about the 30 humans who had been executed. She spoke about the resistance that had grown from that injustice. She spoke about the final battle. Above Earth. "The Empire thought humans were weak," she said. "They thought they could execute 30 people without consequence. But they learned that humanity doesn't surrender. Humanity doesn't give up. And when you push humanity too far, they push back with everything they have." "What happened to the Admiral?" one student asked. "The one who led the final battle?" "Admiral Jiho retired after the war," the teacher said. He lives on Earth now. He spends his time helping rebuild and making sure we never forget what the war cost. That evening, Jiho sat on his balcony and watched the sunset. Earth had healed in the 10 years since the war. The damaged cities had been rebuilt. The scars were fading, but Jiho still remembered every face. Every soldier who had died under his command. Every ship that had fallen in battle. Every sacrifice that had been made. He thought about the Empire and how it had ruled for so long through fear. He thought about Emperor Valther III, who had died still believing humans were inferior. He thought about Hana, giving her life to save billions of people she would never meet. And he thought about the future. The coalition was strong now, but it was young. There would be challenges ahead. Some species would want more power. Others would disagree about how to govern. Democracy was messy and imperfect, but it was better than tyranny. His datapad chimed with a message. It was from Ambassador Yuna, now serving as the coalition's first chancellor. Jiho, the Senate wants to honor you with a medal for your service. Will you accept? He typed back a simple reply. No medals. Just remember what we fought for. Make sure it was worth it. As the sun set over Earth, Jiho thought about the 30 people whose deaths had started everything. Doyun and the 29 others. They had been innocent. They had been executed to send a message. But the message the Empire sent wasn't the one they intended. Instead of showing dominance, they had shown cruelty. Instead of inspiring fear, they had inspired rebellion. And now, the Empire was gone. Replaced by something better. Something built on freedom and equality instead of tyranny and fear. Jiho raised his glass to the sunset, to the memory of everyone who had died, and to the future they had created. We did it, he said quietly. We actually did it. And somewhere in the galaxy, on planets freed from imperial rule, billions of people lived their lives in peace. They raised families, built homes, and dreamed of the future. They were free, and they would never forget the price that had been paid for that freedom.